So today, it's a bit of a confessional. I'm going to show you one of those big YouTube fashionable things. Chillutery. Now, I absolutely love this spot as a wee bit for filming, but it's quite difficult to film doing anything in here because the stuff I'm doing's there and it's quite difficult with a camera. But this is one of those pallet planter ideas that you see all over YouTube and Instagram and all that kind of thing. We built this a couple of years ago. Now, the first thing we did was put strawberries in it, and that was its purpose. We wanted to take the strawberries out of a raised bed and do something else with them. We didn't want to lose our strawberries, but given we only actually have 3 raised beds to grow in, I wanted to steal a bed back for other veggies and things. So we built this, that whole vertical grown thing. It looked awesome. So many people, big names, big channels, celebrities are all going, do this, it's great. Usually for the herbs, so we did it. Let me just be honest, guys, it's not great. Actually, it's pretty rubbish. So we got very little strawberries that first year they were in there. I said then I was really struggling to keep on top of keeping that soil watered, keeping those plants healthy, because such small little pockets of soil and the fact it's vertical, the rain pretty much doesn't touch it. Vertical then, so I said the rain pretty much doesn't touch it because it hits the top, but it's incredibly narrow, so it doesn't get a lot, and it's quite shallow because we only did the 1 pocket size deep, 1 plank size. So even when it gets a bit of water, it doesn't stay wet. And these ones underneath are all pretty much covered over, so they don't really get any of the rain, and this one doesn't get enough to then drain into this one and give it enough so that it will then drain into this one. Do you see what I mean? Here's an example. It hammered it down with rain all last night. Hours of really heavy rain, and most of yesterday during the day. So if you are going to grow like this, there's a few things you're going to have to think about. It doesn't hold water, so you're going to want some really nice water retentive soil in here. Or even, like I did, you can add some of those water retaining crystals that you would use in things like hanging baskets. But essentially, these are very, very small containers or troughs or pots or whatever, so you have to grow thinking about it like that. You are container planting in very small containers. Now, I suppose the next thing you have to think about is the type of plants you're putting in here. So, like I say, we started off with it for strawberries. Really didn't work. We got such a poor harvest. Clearly, the strawberries just weren't getting everything they needed. So, the next thing we tried was a whole bunch of alpines, because we thought, we've discovered that it's really difficult to keep it watered. So plants that don't like a lot of water should do well in here. Well, you know, we discovered that some of them have lasted and done fine. Not all of them did. We thought, well, the whole herbs thing, all the folk online talk about it for herbs. So we shoved some thyme and that kind of thing in here. And it was a bit hit and miss for that too. So you're going to want to think about what you're putting in here. Something that really doesn't like to be wet, and something that doesn't need a lot of nutrition. Because, obviously, in order to keep the nutrition topped up, you're going to have to be constantly feeding with a water-soluble solution. And given it doesn't really do well with the watering, that's a lot of work. So, I'm making some changes. Again. So, I'm clearing out what is essentially old, spent compost, potting mix, whatever. In any of these pockets where the basically I need to plant something new in it. And let's be honest, because somebody's going to ask, spent compost? No, don't bin it. As long as it's not had disease or anything like that in it, I can use it in the beds in the garden. I can add some fertiliser, etc., and maybe use it in some pots. So some of the plants, I'm not going to say are thriving, but you know, they're doing okay. So I'm going to leave them in, and anywhere there are gaps, I'm going to give it some nice new soil and some new plants that have grown. Tips then, plants that seem to have done okay. Number one is phlox. So I've got this one here and I've got this one here. This one survived. It's a bit more sheltered at this back bit from frost and things. So this one has survived as a plant. This bit here, it's all brand new stuff that's come up. It died back over the winter. Couple of the alpine type plants did okay. So we've got a sedum over here that's done okay. Gives me little pink flowers. Semperviva. What else? Just general, not much, you know. I'm going to leave the ivies. It's not dead and I'm not sure about it. So I'm going to leave it and give it another season to see. This time, I'm not sure. I think I might give it a really hard prune and give it another season just to see. And this wee dianthus at this side, again, it's survived. I wouldn't say thrived, so I'm not sure how it's going to go flowering and stuff wise. But that's the plan for here. I'm going to take my lead from the fact that the little phlox did okay. And I've grown on some Aubrietia that I'm now going to pot into these areas. Aubrietia, we love. We've got it loads of places in the garden, but it just does that whole filling in a space beautifully. Heaps of flowers and it trails, which will be awesome. So we're going to give it a try. The only downside is these are things that die back over winter. So it means we lose that colour and evergreen and that kind of thing over the winter. So I'm still going to have to work on that one. But let's get started then. Now, it's the beginning of May for me, so our last frost date hasn't passed yet. However, these Aubrietia are hardy in our garden. But because I grew them on in the greenhouse, I've been hardening them off out here. So I've been giving them a wee bit of time to get used to the light in the garden, the wind in the garden, the temperatures in the garden. Kate's been letting me use her little mini greenhouse just to give them a wee taster. But today they're going out. Better fasten it up again. That's insect netting, the same as I've got in the beds. It's really handy. But my hope is 7 little tiny pots. I'm hoping these will just grow and fill that space before long, hopefully. So not going to have enough, but I'll do my best. Now, I don't have enough, but I'm going to prioritise this kind of layer here because that's the one we see all the time. So for us, it's going to be the pretty bit, so that's priority. And then I'll have to bring some more stuff on to go in this layer here. But, you know, it's May, it's early. Now, your choice of soil, compost, potting mix, whatever you want to call it, is going to be key here. Now, last year and the year before, every time you've seen me work here, I've spoken about how I made up my own mix as usual, but I added lots of the little crystals that are water retentive that I use in baskets. And I added lots of fish blood and bone, and I added just a little bit of perlite or vermiculite to keep it fluffy for drainage. Clearly it sucked though, this is just not done well. So this year I'm going to test out, I have bought some of that really expensive stuff you buy in your local garden centre. So it's got slow release fertiliser in it that should keep it going for a few months. It's quite fibrous, which is quite nice for this, because that'll be nice and water retentive. Plus, it actually says it's got added stuff that they've given fancy names to for the water retention type thing. So I'm going to give it a try. Can't do any worse than the last year's, can it? And maybe this will be the secret. Now there's one other thing I did and I'm going to carry on doing. And you guys ask about this loads, so I'm going to actually make a point of telling you. Because this is going to get lots of air and sunlight and stuff on it, and we know it doesn't do well with the water. I'm going to mulch on top to do everything I can to try and hold that moisture in. Now, for things like this, and you guys have seen it on top of some of our pots, shrubbery, rockery, beds out front, all of that kind of stuff, we use what's called an inorganic mulch. In other words, it's something that's not made from something that was once alive. So compost would be an organic mulch. Manure, straw, these are stones, so inorganic. Basically, they're just little decorative white stones, and it's kind of a theme throughout all our gardens. The white stones, you get lots of different colours, sizes, you can do whatever suits you. But yeah, we just get these at our garden centre. So I'm going to put these on top, like here, and that will be the mulch that I'll be using. So it does a couple of things. Like a normal mulch, it'll help with the water retentiveness, it'll help to prevent that any moisture that's in there evaporating and drying out. It also helps to keep down the amount of weeds you get. It doesn't stop it completely, but it helps to reduce them. It really makes a difference. But also, we have a little female blackbird that digs in everything and makes a right mess. This will put her off digging here. I mean, she's just doing two things. She's either looking for food or, in kind of nesting season, she steals my straw for her nests. But either way, she makes a right mess. So there's areas she can dig in and areas that I try and put her off. So here we go, let's get planted. A nice layer of this very expensive potting soil to start. And then the wee plant in its entirety. I'm not pricking it out, I'm putting the whole thing in. And this bit I'm going to put 2 in here. Because you know I'll forget. Especially over winter when they die back, if you don't have a label, you run the risk of just emptying this because you think everything's dead. Be careful. And then I'm just going to backfill it. It's one of those jobs that is worth taking the time to do. Backfill it, make sure it's top, make sure the depth is up to where the plants were in the pot, give it a good press to make sure it's all nice and stable. It's worth taking the time because this is the stuff that's going to be in contact with those little roots, that's going to hold the water. It's going to feed those little plants. Now don't forget the front and the back as well. Get compost in all around the plant and give it a good press down. And then gently just brush anything off the leaves. One done. I'll get the rest planted up and then I'll put the stones on top. Another good thing to mention to you guys with these little pockets, don't overfill them because they don't hold a lot of moisture, a lot of nutrition. The more plants you have in there, the more those plants will have to fight to access what there is. Plants in the pockets. Now it's just time to add the stones. Now, like I said, the purpose of this is a mulch. A mulch you want to be a couple of inches on top. So while I'm doing this, now's a good time to remind you guys, if you like this video, plant a nice big thumbs up and possibly even share it with some of your friends, because when you sow, we grow. So there we go then, we've got it planted up. Kate with a flamethrower.
Die! Die!
So there we go then, we've got it planted up. The buns in the bottom I'm going to have to do something about because we didn't have enough plants. It's got really nice, lovely, expensive compost in there with all sorts of things added that hopefully might help. Third attempt at making this pallet planter work. Now, if mulch is a new one on you, video here is where I talk about mulch, what it is, how to use it, explain the whole thing. That might be handy. See you folks.